The rain on Christmas Eve was a cold, miserable sleet that hammered the windshield of my truck. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, 61 years old and the owner of 3 hardware stores. But on this night, I was just a man trying to get home. My manager at the main Charleston branch had called out sick, a last-minute scramble that had me closing the registers myself. Now I was late. Annalise, my wife, would be waiting. She'd have been cooking for 2 days. The house would be filled with the smell of roast turkey, cornbread dressing, and her sweet potato pie. Our son Julian was home. Julian, it had been 6 months. 6 months since we'd seen him and his wife, Delia. They were flying in from Newark, bringing Delia's father along for the first time. Annalise was vibrating with an excitement that made my chest ache. She lived for these moments. She lived for Julian. I pushed the truck a little harder, the wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. Annalise was optimistic. It was her nature. She always believed this visit would be the one where things felt right again. I wasn't optimistic. I was a realist. I'd seen the small, sharp cuts Delia made. I'd seen the way Julian let her make them. But it was Christmas. Annalise was happy. I wouldn't ruin it for her. I forced my shoulders to relax, pulling into our long driveway. The house was blazing with lights, a perfect picture against the dark, wet night. I could see the silhouette of our tree in the front window. I killed the engine and sat for a second, listening to the rain drum on the roof. I just wanted a peaceful dinner. One night. That's all I asked for. I grabbed the small gift bag from the passenger seat and stepped out into the freezing rain, hurrying toward the front porch. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. I stomped the mud off my boots on the welcome mat before reaching for the door. The living room window was cracked open just an inch, enough to let some of the oven's heat escape, and just enough for the voices to carry. Delia's voice, sharp, clear, and carrying. Seriously, Annalise, that blouse? I froze, my hand on the doorknob. I mean, I know it's Christmas, Delia continued, her tone a perfect blend of fake concern and sharp judgment. But it makes the scars look even worse. It's unsettling. We have guests coming. My father is coming. I squeezed the doorknob. My knuckles cracked. I could picture Annalise's face, the small, brave smile she would force, the way she'd try to laugh it off. Oh, it's just my old favorite, Delia. Elias needs to update his taste then. Then came the second sound, the one that shattered the cold night, the one that broke something deep inside me. Julian. My son. He laughed. It wasn't a nervous chuckle, it wasn't a polite cough. It was a full, genuine laugh of agreement. A laugh that said, "She's right, Mom, you look ridiculous." I let go of the knob. The rain dripped from my hair onto the porch boards. The laughter echoed, mixing with the smells of turkey and pine. They were laughing at her, laughing at the marks she earned saving his life. I didn't go in. I couldn't. Not yet. I backed away from the door and stood in the rain, the gift bag hanging limp from my fingers. My mind plunged back 25 years. 3 in the morning. The acrid smell of smoke. Not a bonfire. Too close. Too chemical. I had shaken Annalise awake. I smell smoke. We opened our bedroom door to a wall of orange flame devouring the hallway. The staircase was gone. "Julian!" Annalise screamed it. Not a word, a sound of pure terror. His room was at the other end of the hall, on the 2nd floor. Blocked. Completely blocked. "Get to the window! Yell for help!" I shoved her toward our bedroom. "I'll call 911. "There's no time!" she shrieked, running not to the window, but to the adjoining bathroom. "Look at it! He'll be dead by the time they get here." "Annalise, no! Wait for the fire department! It's too late!" She ignored me. She ripped a heavy sheet from our bed, shoved it into the bathtub, and turned the shower on full blast. Before I could grab her, she wrapped the sopping wet sheet around her head and body. "Annalise, don't!" She looked at me, her eyes wide with a terrifying primal certainty. "He's my son, Elias." And then she ran. She ran straight through the doorway, into the inferno. I screamed her name. I watched the flames lick at the sheet, watched it steam and then ignite. She vanished into the black smoke. I spent the next 3 minutes of my life dying. I was at the window, screaming into the night, "Help! Fire! My son is on the 2nd floor!" Neighbors were spilling out of their houses. I heard the distant wail of sirens, a lifetime away. Then, a new light. Not just the fire, the window of Julian's bedroom. I saw a shape, Annalise. She was holding him. She was trying to smash the window, but it was stuck, the frame warped by the heat. I watched, helpless, as the flames found her. The sheet was gone. I saw the fire catch her arm, her shoulder, her neck. She didn't scream. She just kept hitting the glass, over and over with her elbow. Finally, it shattered. Neighbors had a ladder up. She shoved Julian, all 7 years of him, out the window, guiding him onto the rungs. "Go, Julian! Don't look back! Climb down! Go to Dad!" He scrambled down, coughing and crying. Only when he was safe on the grass did she try to climb out herself. She got one leg over the sill and collapsed. Her clothes were burning. Her skin was gone. She fell from the window just as the firefighters arrived. She hit the grass and didn't move. Julian was fine. Smoke inhalation, terrified, but physically untouched. Annalise was not. The next 6 months were a blur of antiseptic smells, sterile rooms, and the rhythmic beeping of machines that told me she was still alive. 2nd and 3rd degree burns. 20% of her body. Her left arm, her shoulder, her neck, her back. I thought I would lose her. Not to the fire, but to the pain, the infections, the endless, agonizing procedures. Her doctor was a young, brilliant specialist, Dr. Harrison Rutherford. He'd just finished a fellowship and was pioneering new skin grafting techniques. He was our guardian angel. I'd sit by her bed, holding the one hand that wasn't wrapped in bandages, and watch him work. He was meticulous, gentle, but firm. He fought for every inch of her skin, for every degree of motion in her arm. "It's a marathon, Mr. Hemlock," he told me, his eyes kind but tired. "She's in more pain than we can imagine, but she's a fighter." He spoke to her every single day, even when she was too sedated to respond. "Annalise, you are a hero. What you did, it's the bravest thing I've ever seen. These marks are nothing to be ashamed of. They are not flaws. They are badges of honor. We're going to get you through this." He did. After 6 months, multiple surgeries, and brutal physical therapy, she came home. Dr. Rutherford moved away a few months later, a big job offer in Newark. We promised to keep in touch. We didn't. Life moved on, but the scars remained. They always would. Julian was grateful at first. For years, he was the boy whose mom was a hero. He told the story at school. He hugged her every day. Then came high school. Adolescence. The gratitude curdled into embarrassment. "Mom, why don't you wear a turtleneck? My friends are coming over." "Mom, can't you wear long sleeves to the game? People are staring." Annalise would try to explain. Julian, these scars are part of me. They're why you're here. I know, he'd snap, the teenage cruelty cutting deep. But it's just weird. It makes them uncomfortable. Annalise would find excuses. He's just a boy, Elias. He's embarrassed by his parents. He'll grow out of it. He didn't. It got worse. He went to college in Charleston, but he might as well have been on the moon. We paid for his tuition, his apartment, his car. The visits became rare, always an excuse. Then, 3 years ago, he met Delia, a corporate lawyer from a wealthy Newark family. Smart, sophisticated, and cold as a surgical steel tray. From the first moment I met her, I felt it. The way she looked at Annalise. Not with kindness, with evaluation. Her eyes scanned my wife, cataloging her like a piece of discount furniture. And when her eyes landed on the scars, I saw it. Not sympathy. Judgment. The wedding planning was a 2-year-long campaign of polite insults. Mrs. Hemlock, have you considered professional scar-covering makeup for the ceremony? They do wonders these days. It would be so much better for the photos. Annalise, that mother of the groom dress is lovely, but the neckline is far too open. We really need something more conservative to minimize the distraction. Through it all, Julian said nothing. He sat beside his fiancée, nodding. He held her hand while she politely, surgically dismantled his mother. He was silent. His silence was his agreement. On the wedding day, in the middle of June, Annalise wore a beautiful, heavy, uncomfortable, long-sleeved dress with a high collar. She sweated in the 95-degree heat. She smiled for the photos. She did it so her son and his new wife wouldn't be ashamed of her on their special day. Watching her tug at that collar, her face flushed from the heat. A cold, hard decision formed in my gut. If this continued, there would be consequences. I didn't know what. Not yet. But I knew I was done watching them crucify her. And now, standing in the rain, I heard that laughter again. My son, laughing at his mother's pain. The decision was no longer a vague idea. It was a plan. It was sharp. It was ready. I took a deep, steadying breath, the cold air burning my lungs. I smoothed my wet hair, picked up the gift bag, and opened the front door. The warmth and the smell of Christmas hit me like a physical blow. The 3 of them were in the living room, just off the foyer. Annalise was standing by the tree, her back to me, pretending to adjust an ornament. Her shoulders were slumped. Julian was on the sofa, a beer in his hand, smiling. Delia was beside him, scrolling through her phone, a smirk on her face. "Good evening," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the festive music. 3 heads snapped toward me. "Dad!" Julian stood up, his smile wavering. "You're late. We were getting worried." "Had to close the store." I walked past him, setting the damp gift bag on a side table. I didn't take off my coat. But it seems I arrived just in time. Delia looked up from her phone, her expression carefully neutral. "In time for what, Elias?" I turned to face her. "In time to hear your fashion advice for my wife." The silence in the room was sudden and absolute. The music from the kitchen speakers seemed obscenely loud. Julian's face went pale. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about what I just heard through the window, Julian. I'm talking about your wife telling your mother that her blouse is unsettling. I'm talking about you laughing." Annalise turned around. Her eyes were red. "Elias, please don't. It was nothing. A misunderstanding." "Was it, Delia?" I kept my eyes locked on my daughter-in-law. Did I misunderstand? Delia stood up, a true lawyer. She crossed her arms, shifting from defense to offense. Elias, I think you're blowing this out of proportion. I was making an observation. My father is on his way, and we want to make a good impression. Annalise's scars, they can be jarring for people who aren't used to them. Jarring, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. She has a point, Dad, Julian mumbled, looking at the floor. She was just trying to help. Help? I took a step toward my son. By laughing at her? I wasn't laughing at her, he stammered. It's just, it's what, Julian? Say it. It's not a big deal, Julian finally snapped, his voice rising. You're always looking for a fight. We were just talking. It is a big deal, I said, my voice dangerously low. It's been a big deal for 15 years. It was a big deal at your wedding. It's a big deal every time you ask her to cover up, every time you hide her, every time you act like she is something to be ashamed of. I am not ashamed of her. Then why did you laugh? Why haven't you just once told your wife to back off? To show your mother some basic respect? Elias, with all due respect, Delia interjected. You are not being fair. Julian and I live in a different world. We're in Newark. Appearance matters. The people we associate with, they notice things. All I was suggesting was that Annalise look a little more appropriate. Appropriate, I said. Yes, for a Christmas dinner, for guests. Julian threw his hands up, finally landing on the word he was searching for. We just want her to look presentable. Presentable. The word hung in the air, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Annalise made a small sound, a tiny gasp, as if I'd struck her. She turned back to the tree, her whole body trembling. That was it. The final break. The son she had walked through fire for, the man I had raised, had just called his mother unpresentable because of the very scars she'd earned saving him. A cold, surgical calm settled over me. The rage was gone, replaced by a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I knew exactly what to do. Annalise, I said, my voice flat. Go to the kitchen, please check on the turkey. She looked at me, her eyes swimming with tears, pleading. Elias, please, it's Christmas. Let's not fight. It's not a fight. I walked to her, put my hands on her shoulders, her good shoulder. It's a conversation that is 25 years overdue. Go to the kitchen. I need to speak with our son and his wife. Alone. Elias. Now, Annalise. She saw the look in my eyes, the one she hadn't seen since the fire, the one that meant there was no more discussion. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked out of the room. I waited until I heard the kitchen door swing shut. I turned back to Julian and Delia. They were both standing, braced, defiant. Sit down, I said. Dad, you're not going to... I said, sit down. They sat, slowly, warily, like two wolves cornered. I walked to the front door and locked the deadbolt. The click echoed in the room. I turned the key and put it in my pocket. What are you doing? Delia asked, her voice losing some of its confidence. I'm setting the terms of this meeting, I said, walking to the center of the room. I was still in my wet coat. Here's what happens now. This is not a negotiation. You are going to listen. I pointed at Julian. First, you are going to apologize to your mother. Not a mumble, not an excuse. A real apology. You will tell her she is a hero, and you will tell her you are sorry for being a coward. I turned to Delia. Second, you are going to apologize. You will tell her you are sorry for mocking her, for disrespecting her in her own home. You will never, ever make a comment about her appearance again. And third, I continued, you are going to spend the rest of this Christmas dinner treating her with the honor and respect she has earned. You will be kind. You will be engaging. You will not exchange one single look of judgment. I paused, letting the terms sink in. If you can do those 3 things, you may stay and have Christmas dinner. If you cannot, or if I sense one shred of insincerity, you will leave. Now, I will call you an Uber to the airport myself. Julian stared at me in disbelief. You're kicking us out? On Christmas Eve? You're insane. I am overreacting? I shot back, my voice finally cracking with the fury I'd held back. She ran through fire for you, Julian. She endured 6 months of agony. She wears the proof of her sacrifice on her skin every single day. And you laugh. You call her unpresentable. You can't talk to my wife like that, Julian postured, standing up again. I can, I said, and I am, because someone needs to set a boundary here. And since you have proven time and time again that you are unwilling or unable to do it, I will. This is ridiculous, Delia said, pulling out her phone. We're adults. You can't lock us in. I'm not. I'm giving you a choice. Respect or exit. What's it going to be? Julian opened his mouth to argue. Delia was already dialing. And then the doorbell rang. A loud, cheerful 3-note chime. Ding dong ding. The 3 of us froze. The argument hung in the air, unfinished, toxic. The doorbell rang again. Ding dong ding. That'll be my father, Delia said, her voice laced with smug triumph. Are you going to lock him out, Elias? I looked at Julian's defiant face, at Delia's victorious smirk. They thought a new guest would save them. They thought I'd back down to avoid a scene. I walked to the door, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the key, and unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door. On the other side stood a man of about 65, tall, well-dressed in a wool overcoat, with silver hair and a kind, intelligent expression. He was holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a wrapped gift in the other. Good evening, he said, smiling warmly. I'm Harrison Rutherford, Delia's father. Please excuse my tardiness. The traffic from the airport was just terrible. My blood went cold. I stared at him. The face was older. The hair was gray, not brown. But the eyes were the same. The kind, tired, intelligent eyes that had looked up at me from Annalise's bedside. It was him. It was the Dr. Harrison Rutherford, the man who had saved my wife, the man who had called her a hero. My entire plan, my entire strategy, evaporated. This changed everything. Dr. Rutherford, I said, my voice hoarse. I extended a hand. Elias Hemlock, it's an honor to welcome you to our home. He shook my hand firmly. The honor is mine, Elias. Delia has told me so much about you all. I doubt she's told you enough, I said, a new, desperate idea forming. Please come in. The rain is terrible. Thank you. He stepped into the foyer, stamping his feet. Delia, Julian, we're here. Dad, you made it. Delia rushed forward, hugging him. Julian was right behind her, shaking his hand, all smiles. Dad, you're all wet, Julian said to me, the concerned son. I am, I said. Dr. Rutherford, before you take your coat off, could I have a word with you? In private, on the porch. Delia's smile faltered. Dad, don't be rude. Let him come in. It's important, I said, locking eyes with the doctor. It's about Annalise. His expression changed. The polite smile faded, replaced by a doctor's focus. Is she all right? Yes, I said. And no, please. 2 minutes. He looked from me to his daughter, sensing the tension. Of course. Lead the way. Dad, what are you doing? Delia hissed as I opened the front door again. 2 minutes, Delia, Dr. Rutherford said over his shoulder. He followed me back out onto the covered porch, pulling his overcoat tight against the wind. The moment the door closed, I was about to speak, but he cut me off. Mr. Hemlock. Elias, please. Elias, I'm a doctor. I can read a room. The tension in there is thick enough to cut. My daughter looks like she's been in a fight, and so do you. What is going on? I took a breath. I'm not sure how to start. This is going to sound impossible. Try me. Your name? Harrison Rutherford. You're a burn specialist. You used to work here in Charleston 25 years ago, before you moved to Newark. His eyes sharpened. Yes, that's correct. I was at Charleston General for 3 years. How did you know that? My wife, Annalise. 25 years ago, our house burned down. She ran into the fire to save our son, Julian. She suffered severe burns. Her doctor, the man who saved her life, was named Dr. Harrison Rutherford. He stared at me. The color drained from his face. Annalise. Hayes. No. Her name was Hayes then. Annalise Hayes. Her maiden name. Yes, she's that Annalise. My God. He gripped the porch railing, steadying himself. I've thought about her for years. She was one of my most difficult cases. One of my most rewarding. I never knew. Delia married her son? Julian, the boy from the fire? Yes. I never made the connection. The names, Hemlock, Hayes, I just never. My God, I need to see her. He made a move for the door, but I put a hand on his arm. Wait, Harrison, there's more. There's a reason I brought you out here. What is it? Is she ill? No, she's heartbroken. I told him. I told him everything. Quickly, concisely. The years of Julian's shame. The wedding. Delia's non-stop suggestions. And then I told him what I'd overheard when I arrived, not 10 minutes ago. Delia called her scars unsettling. She said my wife looked inappropriate. And Julian, the boy you remember, he laughed. Dr. Rutherford was silent. He stared out into the rain, his face unreadable. I watched him, my hope sinking. I had expected, what? Outrage? Shock? Instead, he looked tired. Elias, he said finally, his voice measured. I appreciate you telling me this, but you must understand. Delia is my daughter. She can be direct. It's her lawyer brain. She doesn't mean to be cruel. I'm sure she was just trying to help in her own way. My stomach dropped. Help? Harrison, it wasn't direct. It was mockery. I heard it. Are you sure? He countered, his tone hardening just a fraction. It's Christmas Eve. Emotions are high. It's very easy to misinterpret a comment. I know my daughter. She is not a cruel person. This was it. The unexpected ally was no ally at all. He was just a father defending his child, just like I was. I am not misinterpreting anything, I said, my voice cold. I came to you because I thought you, of all people, would understand. The man who told her those scars were badges of honor. And they are, he said stiffly. But I will not walk in there and accuse my daughter based on a second-hand account. It's a family dispute, Elias. It should be handled by the family. It is, I said. And you're part of it now. Please, just come inside, see her. Then tell me I'm overreacting. He sighed, frustrated. Fine. Let's go in. But I am not here to take sides. I'm here for a peaceful Christmas dinner. He opened the door and walked in ahead of me, brushing the rain from his coat. Delia, Julian, my apologies. Just a misunderstanding about the old neighborhood. Annalise had come out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was standing by the dining room entrance. Dr. Rutherford turned, a polite smile fixed on his face, ready to be the peacemaker. And you must be. He stopped, dead in his tracks. His eyes met hers. The polite smile evaporated. The color drained from his face again, this time completely. Annalise just stared, her hand rising to her mouth. "Dr. Rutherford," she whispered. He didn't answer. He ignored Delia, ignored Julian, ignored me. He walked toward her, slow, unsteady steps, like a man seeing a ghost. "My God," he breathed. "It is you." He stopped a foot in front of her. His eyes weren't on her face. They were on her neck. On the patterned, raised skin that peeked above the collar of her blouse. On the scars on her arm, visible below her rolled-up sleeve. He reached out a hand, slowly, a professional gesture, but his hand was trembling. He didn't touch her. He just hovered his fingers over the graft work on her shoulder. His face was pale, his voice was a hoarse murmur. "I know these scars. I chose this graft pattern. The split-thickness mesh on the deltoid. The full-thickness graft on the clavicle. This is my work." He looked up, his eyes meeting hers, and they were filled with a profound, staggering emotion. "Annalise, after all these years." "Doctor," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. I can't believe it's you." "Dad?" Delia's voice was sharp, confused. "What are you talking about? You know Mrs. Hemlock?" Dr. Rutherford didn't turn. He couldn't take his eyes off Annalise. "Know her?" "Delia, I treated her. This is Annalise, the patient I've told you about for years. The fire. The one who saved her son." The silence in the room was absolute. I watched Delia's face. Confusion warred with dawning comprehension. She looked at her father, then at Annalise, then at Julian. "Wait," Delia said. "The fire. Julian, this is your mother? That patient?" "Yes," I said. Julian looked like he'd been punched. You told them about me?" "I told them about a hero, Dr. Rutherford said, his voice thick. He finally turned, his gaze sweeping over his daughter and his new son-in-law. He looked at Julian. You were the 7-year-old boy in the upstairs bedroom." Yes. She ran through a wall of fire for you. I saw the house plans. I know what she went through to get to you." He then looked at his daughter, Delia. His expression was no longer kind. It was cold. It was the face of a prosecutor. "And you," he said, his voice deadly calm. "You just mocked her." "What?" Delia tried to laugh it off. "Dad, no. Elias misunderstood. I was just—" "Elias misunderstood?" Dr. Rutherford's voice snapped like a whip. "Did I misunderstand, Delia? Did I misunderstand the man who just told me, on that porch, that you called these unsettling?" Delia's face went white. She shot me a look of pure hatred. "You told him? You ran outside to tattle on me?" "I told him the truth," I said. "Dad, he's lying. He's twisting my words." "He's trying to start a fight." "He's not lying." Annalise's voice, soft, broken, but clear. Everyone turned to her. She was weeping silently, tears streaming down her face. "He's not lying, Dr. Rutherford." She said I was unsettling. And Julian laughed. Dr. Rutherford closed his eyes. He took one long, shuddering breath. When he opened them, the tired doctor was gone. In his place was a judge. "So it's true," he said to Delia. "Dad, I didn't know the story. I didn't know it was her," Delia pleaded, finally realizing her defense was gone. "You didn't know?" he thundered, taking a step toward her. "You think that matters? You think you need a resume of a person's trauma before you treat them with basic human decency? You mocked a burn survivor." "My God, Delia, what did I raise?" "Harrison, please," Annalise whispered. "Don't." "No, Annalise, I am not done." He rounded on Julian, who flinched, taking a step back. "And you," Dr. Rutherford pointed a finger at my son. "She walked through hell for you. I was there. I saw the price. I held her hand while she screamed during the debridements. I spent 6 months fighting to save her arm, to save her life. And you laughed?" It was just a nervous laugh," Julian stammered, shrinking. I didn't mean it." "A nervous laugh?" I stepped forward. "I heard you, Julian. There was nothing nervous about it. It was mockery, pure and simple. You've been ashamed of her for 15 years, and tonight you finally had an ally in your cruelty." "I am not cruel," Julian shouted. "Then what do you call it?" I shouted back. "What do you call letting your wife tear her down? What do you call calling her unpresentable in her own home?" "Enough!" Dr. Rutherford roared. The word silenced the room. He walked to the center of the room, vibrating with a cold, contained fury that was terrifying to watch. He was no longer a guest. He was a specialist, in charge of a critical situation. "This is not a family squabble," he said, his voice low and cutting. "This is a reckoning." He turned to his daughter. "Delia, you are a Rutherford. I taught you empathy. I taught you to see the person, not the file. And you stood here and you used your words to tear down a woman who represents the very best of what it means to be human. You have brought shame to me and to our name." "Dad, I'm sorry. Be quiet." He turned to Julian. "And you. You are the beneficiary of the single greatest act of sacrifice I have ever witnessed. You are alive, you are breathing, you have a career, a wife, all of it. Because that woman," he pointed to Annalise, "was willing to burn alive for you. And you repay her with shame? You repay her with laughter?" I don't know what to say," Julian whispered. He was broken. "Of course you don't. Because there is nothing to say." "Doctor," Rutherford looked at me, his eyes filled with a grim apology. "Elias, you were right. I was wrong. I apologize for doubting you. This is worse than you said." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now," Dr. Rutherford said, "we stop this, for good." "Delia, Julian, sit," Dr. Rutherford commanded. They sat on the sofa, 2 chastened children. "Annalise, Elias, please." He gestured to the armchairs. We sat. He remained standing, pacing in front of the fireplace. "I'm going to tell you a story," he said, his voice quiet now, but heavy. "A medical story, because I don't think you two," he glanced at the sofa, "truly understand." "We get it, Dad," Delia mumbled. "She was burned. It was bad." "Bad?" Dr. Rutherford laughed, a short, ugly sound. "No. Bad is a grease burn from a frying pan. Bad is spilling hot coffee. What Annalise endured was a descent into a level of physical pain that most human beings will never, ever experience." He looked at Julian. "Do you know what third-degree burns are, Julian? It means the fire burned through every layer of skin. Through the epidermis, through the dermis, down to the subcutaneous fat. It destroys the nerve endings, but the second-degree burns surrounding those areas, those are the most painful injuries known to medicine. Annalise was crying softly into her hands. I put my arm around her. For the first 2 weeks, Harrison continued, her life was in the balance. The risk of infection was massive. We had her in a medically induced coma just to manage the trauma. And then the real work began. The debridements. That means taking surgical scrubs and scraping the dead, burned tissue off her raw flesh. Every other day. We had to do it to prevent sepsis. The morphine barely touched the pain. She would scream. She would beg us to stop. Sometimes, she would beg us to let her die. Julian had his head in his hands. Delia was as pale as a sheet. Then the grafts. We had to harvest skin from her thighs, the one place she wasn't burned, and staple it, piece by piece, onto her arm, her shoulder, her neck. Her body rejected the first set. We had to do it all over again. And the therapy. The scar tissue hardens. It contracts. We had to force her to stretch, to move, to break that scar tissue every single day so she wouldn't lose the use of her arm. The pain was, by her own description, like being on fire all over again. He stopped pacing and stood in front of them. She did that for 6 months. She never missed a session. She never gave up. One day, in the middle of a therapy session, she was crying so hard she could barely breathe. I asked her, "Annalise, why are you pushing this hard? You can rest." You know what she told me? He looked right at Julian. She said, "I can't. I have a 7-year-old son who needs his mother. I have to be able to hold him again." You, Julian. She did all of that. For you. Julian was sobbing, not a man's quiet tears. He was bawling, his shoulders heaving, like the 7-year-old boy he'd been. "Mom," he choked out, looking at Annalise. "Mom, I didn't know. I never knew it was that bad." "Because you never asked," I snapped. "You never wanted to know. You just wanted her to hide it." "I'm sorry," he wailed. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I've been a fool. I've been awful. I'm sorry." Annalise got up and went to him, her scarred arm wrapping around his shaking shoulders. "Oh, Julian, my boy, it's okay." "No," I said, standing up. "No, Annalise, it is not okay. Stop. Don't you dare comfort him, not this time." She froze, looking at me, confused. "He doesn't get your comfort," I said, my voice shaking. "He doesn't get to make you feel bad, and then get forgiveness 2 minutes later. Not anymore." "Elias is right," Dr. Rutherford said, his voice gentle but firm. "Annalise, sit down. Let him feel this. He needs to." She hesitated, then returned to her seat. Julian looked up, his face a mess of tears and snot. "Dad, what do you want from me?" "I want you to be a man," I said. "I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. This apology is a start, but it's not enough. Not after 15 years. Delia, seeing her husband fall apart, finally spoke. "Mrs. Hemlock, Annalise, I am sorry too. Genuinely, I had no idea. What my father said, it's horrifying. My comments were unforgivable. I am truly sorry." It sounded sincere, but I was done with words. "This has been a very emotional reunion," Dr. Rutherford said, trying to steer the conversation. "Annalise, despite it all, to see you, to see how well the grafts healed. You look incredible. You've taken care of the skin. Every day," she whispered, "just like you taught me. the lotion, the massage, every day for 25 years. I knew you would, he smiled. That's wonderful, doctor, I said, cutting in. And I am grateful, more than you know, for you being here. But we are not finished. I looked at Julian and Delia. You're sorry, I heard you. Now what? What do you mean, now what? Julian asked, wiping his face. We apologized. We'll do better. We promise. Promises. I laughed. A bitter, short sound. You've made promises before. Every time they last until the next time you're embarrassed. Until the next time your friends are around. Until the next time Delia makes a suggestion. That's not fair, Delia shot back. Isn't it? What about the work presentation? 6 months ago. Mom, I don't think you should come. The clients are sensitive. You remember that, Julian? Julian flinched. I remember, I said. And that was when I decided that words were finished. What are you talking about, Elias? Annalise asked. I'm talking about consequences, Annalise. Real ones. Julian's tears started to dry. He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. What consequences? What did you do? You think your mother is the only one who's been paying attention? I said. I've been watching you for years. Watching you taking our money for college, taking our money for your apartment, taking our support, and in return, you give your mother shame. Dad, that's not true. It is true, but that's over. The bank of Mom and Dad, it's closed. I turned to Delia. You're a lawyer. You understand contracts. You understand terms and conditions. What are you getting at, Elias? She asked, her voice wary. I'm getting at the fact that Julian's behavior has a cost. A real-world dollars and cents cost. Elias, no, Annalise said, her voice rising in panic. Whatever you're thinking, don't. He's our son. He is, I agreed, and he is about to learn the most important lesson of his life. This isn't a family fight anymore, I announced, pulling my phone from my pocket. This is a business meeting, as of this moment. I looked at Dr. Rutherford. Harrison, I apologize. This is not the Christmas you were promised. On the contrary, Elias, he said, taking a seat in the armchair opposite me. I feel I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Please continue. I nodded. I looked at the two of them on the sofa. 6 months ago, the day after you uninvited your mother from your work event, Julian, I went to my lawyer. I saw the first flicker of genuine panic in Julian's eyes. Not remorse, fear. You what? I had a long talk with my attorney about my assets, my estate, the hardware stores, the properties, the investments. Elias, Annalise cried. You didn't. I did. Delia sat up straight. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. The lawyer was back. Your will, she said. My will, I confirmed. My estate, I said, keeping my voice level and calm, is worth at present approximately $5 million, give or take. Delia's eyes widened. Julian stopped breathing. Originally, as you both know, my will was simple. Everything passed to Annalise, and upon her death, it passed to our only son, Julian. You, I pointed at him, were the sole beneficiary of the Hemlock family assets. Julian was nodding. Dad, that's right. That's how it should be. That's how it was, I corrected. I changed it 6 months ago. I pulled up the email from my lawyer, the one with the PDF of the countersigned final document. As of June 14th, my will states the following. Upon my death, Annalise still gets everything. She is protected. But upon her death, The estate is no longer passed to you, Julian. What? He whispered. You receive a token, 30%. Delia let out a small, strangled sound. 30! The other 70%, I continued. All of it, the stores, the properties, is being liquidated. The entire sum is to be transferred into an endowment, managed by Dr. Rutherford's old hospital. It will be called the Annalise Hemlock Fund for Burn Survivors. It will pay for treatment, therapy, and support for people who need it. People like your mother. Julian leapt to his feet. You can't! You can't do that! That is my money! That's my inheritance! You're stealing it from me! I'm not stealing anything, I said calmly. It's my money, and I've decided to give it to people who might actually appreciate the sacrifice it represents, not to a son who is ashamed of the very person who inspired it. You bastard! He screamed, his face purple. You can't do this! I'll contest it! You'll what? I asked. You'll tell a judge you're entitled to it? After your mother's own doctor testifies about how you treated her? Julian looked at Dr. Rutherford, who just stared back, his face grim. You did this! Julian shrieked at Delia. This is your fault! You and your stupid comments! My fault? She yelled back. You're the one who laughed. You're the one who's been hiding her for years. I'm fixing this, Julian roared. He was pacing, frantic, like a cornered animal. You're not fixing anything, Julian, I said. It's done, it's filed, it's legal. You think so? He sneered, a wild, desperate look in his eyes. He stopped pacing, and a terrible cold smile spread across his face. You think you're so smart, old man. You and your will. You're losing your memory, Dad. What are you talking about? I'm talking about 5 years ago. He pulled out his own phone. You had that health scare, the chest pains. You thought you were having a heart attack. You were so scared. My blood ran cold. I knew what he was talking about. You were so scared, Julian continued, his voice dripping with venom, that you dragged me to your lawyer's office. Just in case, you said. Just in case something happens. I need you to be able to pay the bills. I need you to run the company. Annalise gasped. Julian, no. Oh, yes. He pulled up a document from his cloud storage. Full power of attorney, over Hemlock Hardware, LLC, full unrestricted signatory rights, the business accounts, all of them. You gave it to me, Dad, and in your righteous anger, you forgot to revoke it. He'd found it, the one weapon I had left him, the one mistake I had made, my leverage, my advantage. It was gone. I stared at him. He was right. I had completely forgotten. In the relief of the tests coming back negative, in the years that followed, it had slipped my mind entirely. Delia's eyes lit up. She was looking at her husband with a new, terrifying respect. The lawyer in her recognized the checkmate. What are you saying, Julian? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I'm saying your will is worthless, he spat. Because there won't be an estate. What's 5 million, Dad? I can transfer that in 5 minutes. I can liquidate the company accounts before you can even call your lawyer. He held up his phone. So here's my ultimatum, Dad. You're going to call your lawyer, right now, on Christmas Eve. You're going to tear up that new will, and you're going to reinstate the old one. 100%. To me. Or what? I challenged, though my stomach was in knots. Or I drain it. I drain everything. Right now. Before midnight. I'll take the money, I'll take my wife, and we'll be on a plane back to Newark. You'll be left with nothing. You and her. Julian, Annalise screamed, lunging for him. You can't. That is your father's life. That's our life. He started it, Julian roared, holding the phone aloft. He tried to steal my future. I'm just defending myself. This is monstrous, I said. I was beaten. He had me. He would do it. He was greedy enough, and he was angry enough. It's business, Dad, he sneered. Just like you said. So what's it going to be? Your money or your pride? I looked at Annalise, her face a mask of despair. I looked at Julian, his face triumphant and ugly. I had lost. I had pushed him too far, and he had pushed back with a nuclear weapon. I slumped into my chair. You win, Julian, fine. I'll call the lawyer. Elias, no, Annalise cried. I have to, I said. He'll destroy us. Yes, you will, Julian said with a smirk. Go ahead, Julian. A new voice, quiet, cold. We all turned. Dr. Harrison Rutherford was standing by the fireplace, watching the scene. He hadn't moved. Go ahead, he repeated, looking at Julian. Do it. Julian's smirk faltered. What? What did you say? I said, do it. Liquidate the accounts, transfer the money, ruin your father. I'd like to see it. Dad? Delia said, confused. What are you doing? He's given in. He's not giving in, Dr. Rutherford said, walking slowly toward the center of the room. He's being blackmailed. You, my son-in-law, are committing a crime, and you, my daughter, are sitting there supporting him. It's not a crime, Delia snapped. It's a legal power of attorney. It's theft by extortion, Dr. Rutherford countered. And I don't care what you call it. Do it, Julian. Drain the money. I will, Julian said, his finger hovering over his phone. Good. And as soon as you do, Dr. Rutherford said, his voice dropping, my daughter will file for divorce. The world stopped. Julian froze. His finger was inches from the phone screen. He looked at Delia. Delia's jaw dropped. Dad, you can't tell me to do that. This is my marriage. This is our future. It was your future, Dr. Rutherford said. I will not have my daughter, my only child, married to a man who would blackmail his own father. I will not have my name, the Rutherford name, associated with a common thief who repays his mother's sacrifice with extortion. He looked at her, his eyes blazing. You have a choice, Delia. Right now. You side with him. This creature. And you are no longer my daughter. You disown me? She whispered, horrified. Disown you, disinherit you. I will cut you off completely. Tonight. I will walk out of this house, and you will never hear from me again. Your choice, him and the stolen money, or me and your family, and your conscience. This was it, the real ultimatum. Delia stared at her father. She saw he meant it, every word. He was a man of principle, and she had just watched him defend Annalise with a passion she'd never seen. Then she looked at Julian. She looked at his face, twisted in greed and panic. She looked at the phone in his hand. She looked at the man who was willing to destroy his parents, the man she had married. And in that second, I saw the spell break. The lawyer's calculation faded, replaced by a simple, human disgust. Julian, she said, her voice shaking. Don't, just don't. He's right. This is monstrous. Julian looked at her, stunned. Delia, what are you're siding with him? I'm siding with decency, she cried. I can't be a part of this. This isn't just business. This is evil. Give him the phone. It's our money, Delia, our future. It's his money, she shrieked, pointing at me. And I won't be married to a man who would do this. Dad is right. I'll leave you. I swear I will. The threat of losing the money was one thing, but the threat of losing his wife and her family and her inheritance, that was the final blow. Julian looked at Delia's face. He looked at his father-in-law's face of stone. He looked at me. He had no allies. His entire support system, his entire world, had just vaporized. He slumped. The phone clattered from his hand onto the sofa cushion. His whole body seemed to deflate. The fight was gone. Fine, he whispered, sinking onto the sofa. He put his head in his hands. Fine. You win. Take it. It's yours. I don't care anymore. I let the silence sit for a long, heavy minute. The only sound was Julian's quiet, defeated sobs. I walked over and picked up his phone from the cushion. I held it for a moment, then handed it to him. No, I said. I don't win. We all lost here tonight, Julian. He looked up, confused. I'm not going to call my lawyer tonight, I said. And I'm not going to kick you out. That was just anger. But the will stands. Dad, he started. It stands. The 70-30 split is active. But, I looked at Annalise, at Harrison. I will add one codicil, a probation. You have 5 years, Julian. 5 years? 5 years, starting tomorrow. You will prove to me, to your mother, that this, I pointed to his tear-stained face, is real. You will call her. You will visit. You will treat her with respect, both in public and in private. You will learn her story. You will support her. You will defend her. I looked at Delia. And so will you. If, at the end of 5 years, I continued, you have demonstrated, with actions, not words, that you have truly changed, then I will go back to my lawyer. I will modify the will. Maybe not to 100%, but I will modify it. And if I don't? Julian asked, his voice small. If you fail, if you relapse, if you make one more unsettling comment, if you laugh one more time, the will becomes permanent. The 70% is gone. Forever. Do you understand me? He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Yes. 5 years is a long time, Delia whispered. 5 years is nothing, I shot back, compared to the 25 years your mother has lived with these scars. If you can't commit to 5 years of basic human decency, you don't deserve a dime. Elias is being more than generous, Dr. Rutherford said, stepping forward. Far more than you deserve. But I have my own contribution to this new arrangement. He turned to Annalise. Annalise, my offer from before. It's real. I'm writing a book, a medical memoir, about the extraordinary cases that defined my career. Your story, your rescue, your recovery. It's the centerpiece. It's the chapter I've been waiting to write. A book, she whispered. Yes, about your heroism, about your survival. I want to document your case, properly, with photographs, with interviews. I want the world to know what you did, and what you endured. He glanced at Julian and Delia. The world is going to know why you have those scars, and they are going to know that they are badges of honor, whether this family chooses to recognize it or not. I would be honored, Harrison, Annalise said. Good, he said. We'll start in the new year. Well, I said, letting out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for an hour. The turkey is probably burned. Annalise let out a wet, shaky laugh. I think I turned the oven off. Good. I walked over and put my arm around her. Let's eat, as a family. The dinner was the most tense, awkward, and painful meal of our lives. But we ate. Harrison and Annalise did most of the talking. They reconnected like old friends. They talked about the hospital, about the nurses, about the specific challenges of her recovery. It was a language only they spoke. Julian and Delia were silent. They ate. They listened. I watched my son. I watched him listen, really listen, for the first time. As Harrison described a procedure, I saw Julian look at his mother's arm, his eyes filled with a dawning horror and understanding. He wasn't just hearing the words. He was finally processing the reality, the pain, the sacrifice. It was a terrible Christmas, but it was the most honest one we'd ever had. The days after that Christmas were quiet. Julian and Delia left on the 26th. The goodbye was stiff, but Julian, he hugged his mother, a real hug, and he looked me in the eye. I'll call you Mom, he said. And he did. 2 days later. Then again that weekend. He didn't ask for money. He didn't complain. He asked about her day. He asked about her students. He asked, Mom, that skin-scraping stuff Dr. Rutherford talked about, did it really hurt that bad? It was a start. Delia called too, not to Annalise, to me. Elias, she said, her voice all business. I want to apologize again for my behavior, but I know words aren't enough. You were right. I'm listening. I spoke to my father. I'm offering my firm's pro bono services to the burn charities he works with. Legal aid for victims fighting insurance companies. I'm going to help. It was an action. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. That's a good start, Delia. Thank you. A month later, Harrison Rutherford came back to Charleston. He didn't come alone. He brought a professional photographer. For the book, Annalise, he said gently, we need to document the scars properly, with respect. For 3 hours, they worked in our living room. The photographer set up lights. Harrison was there the whole time, directing. Show him the graft on your back. Yes. Now the arm. Let's see the full range of motion. Beautiful. The scar is smooth. You did the work, Annalise. He treated her scars with a reverence, like a curator examining a priceless work of art. Halfway through, Julian and Delia arrived, unannounced. We were in town for a meeting, Julian said, his voice quiet. They stood in the doorway and watched. They watched this world-renowned specialist and a professional photographer treat Annalise's scars not as unsettling, but as extraordinary. I watched Julian watch his mother. He saw her posing, her scarred arm held out, not in shame, but in pride. And my son, he broke down. He sat on the stairs and wept silently, finally, understanding. When the session was over, he approached Harrison. Doctor, can I ask you something? Of course, Julian. Did you ever think she wouldn't make it? Harrison put a hand on his shoulder. Every day, for the first 2 weeks. Yes, she was that close. So what? What changed? What made her survive? You, Harrison said simply. I asked her that, when she was in so much pain. She told me, I have a 7-year-old son who needs me. I cannot give up. You were her motivation, Julian. Every single day. Julian just nodded, the tears rolling down his face. He walked over to his mother, who was buttoning her blouse. He didn't say a word. He just hugged her. He buried his face in her shoulder, her good shoulder, and held on. Annalise held him back. The book, Badges of Honor, A Surgeon's Life, came out a year later. It was a surprise hit. Harrison's stories were compelling, But Annalise's chapter, the story of the mother who ran through fire, that's what everyone talked about. Harrison invited us to the official launch event in Newark. "The publisher wants you there, Annalise," he said. On stage, we all went. Elias, Annalise, Julian, Delia. The hall was packed. Doctors, press, survivors. Harrison read a passage from the book, and then he introduced his guest of honor. "In my career, I have met many heroes, but none more so than Annalise Hemlock." He projected the photos from that session onto a giant screen. My wife's scars, 20 feet high, not unsettling, not inappropriate, just powerful. The room gave her a standing ovation. "Her son Julian is also here," Harrison said, his voice catching. "The boy she saved." He invited Julian to the stage. Julian looked at me, panicked. I nodded. "Go." He walked up, stood next to his mother, took her scarred hand. They asked me to say a few words," Julian stammered, looking out at the crowd. "When I was 7, my mother ran through a wall of fire to save my life. And for most of my life, I was ashamed of the scars it left her." The room was silent. "I was a fool," he continued, his voice breaking. "I was a coward. I let the world tell me that her scars were ugly. It took a hard lesson to make me see the truth." He held up her hand. "These are not scars. They are the marks of a hero. They are the price of love. And I am so proud to be her son." He turned and hugged her, right there on the stage. The applause was deafening. The 5-year clock was still ticking, but the changes were real. Julian called every week. Delia, too, they visited. Not just on holidays. They came for weekends. We had barbecues. We talked. A year after the book launch, Delia and Julian came over. They had news. We're pregnant," Delia said, a real, unguarded smile on her face. Annalise shrieked with joy, hugging her. "And we want to ask you something," Julian said, taking his mother's hands. "We want this baby, our daughter, to grow up knowing the story from day one. We want her to know what her grandmother did." "Oh, Julian," Annalise cried. "And," Delia added, "we want to name her Annalise." Baby Annalise Marie Hemlock was born 6 months later. I watched in the hospital room as Julian, my son, held his new daughter. He walked over to his mother, who was sitting in the chair, and he placed the baby in her arms, in her scarred arms. The baby's tiny hand wrapped around Annalise's scarred finger. Julian watched, his eyes full. "We're going to tell her the story, Mom," he whispered. "From day one. She will always know her grandmother is a hero." Tonight, 2 years after that terrible Christmas, the house is full again. It's Christmas Eve. Little Annalise, or Annie as we call her, is toddling around the living room. Julian and Delia are here helping in the kitchen. Harrison Rutherford is here too. He's a permanent part of our holidays now. Annalise is wearing her favorite blouse, the one with the open neck. Her scars are visible to the world. Little Annie stumbles and falls. She crawls over to her grandmother. She reaches up and pats Annalise's scarred arm, curious. "That's Gamma's brave," Julian says, picking her up. "That's her hero mark." Later, after dinner, Julian finds me in my study. "Dad? Hey, son, good dinner." It was. He stood in the doorway, awkward. I know the 5 years aren't up, not even close. I know. And I know I don't deserve it. Not yet. But I wanted you to know. It's not about the will anymore. I don't care about the will. You can give it all to the hospital. I don't care." He looked at me, his eyes clear. I'm glad my mom is here. I'm glad I know her. And I'm glad my daughter will know her too. I'm glad too, Julian, I said. He nodded and left. I sat in my chair, listening to the sounds of my family in the other room. The laughter, the music. I thought about the will, about the 5-year plan. The 5-year clock is still ticking. But tonight, for the first time, I think I know how it's going to end. I got up and walked into the living room. I saw my wife, her face bright with joy, holding her granddaughter. I saw my son watching her, his face full of a love I thought was lost forever. Annalise looked up at me and smiled, her scars crinkling around her neck. A map of our survival, a testament to the fact that she had walked through fire and brought us all out with her. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.